and welcome to the education pathway for Santiago Canyon College. Doreen, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Unmute. Okay, sure. My name is Doreen Cassell, and I am with the YMCA of Orange County, the Executive Director of the Child and Youth Development Programs in our Northern Division. So I get everything from the 405-5 split and north, with the exception of 4 programs south. But yeah, that's who we are. And
I'm Jane Avila, Senior Program Director for YMCA of Orange County. I think it's been about 8 years or so with our partnership. I met Ronnie a while back, but specifically we've been able to create a partnership to host interns and have college students that are on that pathway already to come and connect and give them that in-field experience in most of our after-school programs that are housed in Orange, but we do have other locations, and like everyone else has said, we're always looking for qualified people to bring on as part of our team. So that's what we're excited to continue to build on.
That's right. And we actually have a new kind of a special project or program with the YMCA of Orange County that we'll share about in a little while, as kind of a model for maybe what we could do with, the rest of you that are partners in the industry. Laura?
Hello, I'm Laura Kramer. I work with Pathways to Teaching at SCC. I'm here for support and to also know what is going on with the relationships building between the different community organizations so I can help our students.
That's great. Thank you, Laura. So Jamie, would you just introduce yourself again, and Jennifer and Heather real quick, just from where you're from? Got to unmute, Jamie.
Good morning, I'm Jamie Beidler from Orange Unified School District's CARES Expanded Learning Programs.
Thank you, good to have you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Willis, and I'm an Administrative Director from Rainbow Rising School Age Childcare.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Heather Darrow. I'm the principal at Olive Elementary in Orange Unified.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for repeating for the recording purposes. I really appreciate it. We're practicing. We actually have a big event coming up at SCC as our annual Tomorrow's Teachers Conference, which will be on March 19th, and it'll be our first time that we're going to be putting it on in webinar format with the closed captioning and the recording, and switching into breakout rooms or separate meeting rooms for the workshops. But with Veronica and Laura, the right-hand people, the right and left hands of Pathways to Teaching, we're going to be able to do it. And we have a great keynote speaker coming from Humboldt University, and it'll be really interesting to see how it all pans out virtually. But we anticipate about 300 or so high school and community college students who are interested in becoming educators being part of that program for the day. Well, we typically have all of those students come to our campus, and last year we had to cancel it on the Monday or maybe the Thursday before the following Friday that it was going to happen because of everything shutting down due to COVID. So it was quite wild and disappointing for everyone. So it's given us a year, and the students are accustomed to doing this online. So we're hoping to have a really good attendance for that. And typically what we will have, and Heather, this will be good information for you too, is since you're more new to the group, is that we usually have a college and career fair associated with that, where the students can meet people from Orange Cares and the YMCA of OC and Rainbow Rising and the school districts to see what kind of job opportunities are available, as well as university representatives for what are their possible transfer pathways and higher levels of employment. But because we're doing it in a virtual format, we weren't able to do that this year, but we'll be looking forward to next year and having the bright sunshine and a great lunch and all the tables out there for students to be able to come to campus, particularly the high school students coming on a college campus, sometimes for the first time, and meeting with people and hearing our workshop speakers. So we'll be sure to just send out a little announcement about our conference to you all in case you know of if you have staff members who might not be, because it's virtual and it's free, if you have staff, and we got space, obviously, outer space. If you have staff members who might want to attend that day, or any of you that are interested in hearing any of the speakers, you're welcome to register and participate in any of the workshops that you'd like to hear. Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to do today was kind of catch up with you all on what are your operations like in each of your programs during this last year, this pandemic year. You know, there was a huge shutdown of everything, and the only program I'm super familiar with is the YMCA of Orange County, and how after a while they were able to start opening some, what I always get confused of, extended care, after school care, the term out of school time programs to the community, even though most of the schools were closed down. So Heather, maybe can we start with you and Orange Unified, maybe get an update on what's happening just for school and the school day, and if you have any of those out of school time programs on your campus, how is that operating?
So we, when we shut down, it was like shut down. Like everyone's like, what do we do? So it was just total shutdown. The following week, we were on campus for like 2 days. Teachers had 2 days to kind of pack up whatever they would want, and then everyone was sent home. We weren't allowed on campus. Eventually, they let us on campus like 2 days a week, part day. And the district did a lot of professional development options and opportunities for staff, for all staff. And so we learned very quickly how to do all of these online platforms and which was going to be best. And we've changed throughout. But teachers do have options of what they want to use. So the expectation was that they were working like at least an hour a day with the students through the end of last school year. Then when we started this school year, it was, we're going to get ready to open. So just lots of this, all the safety measures was, we started online, everyone was online. And then the plan was to open as soon as the tiers would let us open. So we opened September 28th to kids on campus, but parents have options. And so there are some students who are still 100% virtual. There are some students who are here full day. And there are some students who are here blended. So they come in the morning for that direct instructional time, that synchronous learning time. And they're here till about 11. It's 10:50 for TK and Kinder and 11:05 for everyone else. And then they go home in the afternoon, and then they can do all of their online programs. Like we have iReady, which is an online reading and math program. So they can do that sort of work, or most of our curriculum has online components. So anything that's online that they don't need the teacher right there, they can do in the afternoon. And then the students who stay on campus, they do a lot of that work too. Initially, the teachers were like, yeah, we don't want to provide something different for the kids here than the ones who are at home. So we're just going to keep it this way. And in the afternoon, they'll just go ahead and do their asynchronous stuff. They'll just kind of be on their own. But now we're seeing there really is no end in sight, and we have to do what we can with the kids who are here while they're here. So there's more some intervention type stuff starting with the students and trying to meet the needs of the kids who are here because it's very small. So the teachers are having to teach so many different things. So they have 100% virtual students. So right now they're in class, they have all of their kids online. The expectation is your camera is on, just like the high school, I'm sure the college, your camera is on, you're muted. And then when you're supposed to speak, you speak. And they have to keep track of all of the kids on their screens as well as the kids in the classrooms. They've gotten very techie. So most teachers do have multiple, I think all my teachers have multiple screens so they can drag their students who are at home and they can see all of their students here. We all have TVs in our rooms too. So some of them will display the learning on the TV, others display the students that are at home on the TV. So trying to build that full classroom community. So it's been a challenge. They've risen to it, but stress levels are extremely high. And, you know, you just never know who's about to break, but they've managed. And, you know, I don't know. I've heard Testing Unified had said, we're back full time next year, but I just don't know. We don't know what the plan is right now. As far as after school programs. We do have, it's not CARES anymore, but it's run through the CARES family. And so now it's an EDGE club. So we used to have before, we started with before and after school care, but because we have so few students on campus, we have very few. I don't even know the number right now, maybe 140 with students and staff. Our total enrollment is about 385. There are other schools in the district that have over 300 kids on campus.
Wow.
So, but our families, most of our classrooms were not at capacity. We can only have about 20 students in each room because of the social distancing. And most of our classrooms are far from that capacity. So because we don't have kids on campus, they weren't needing the program, the CARES program. So then they worked to provide just an after school program for the students. It's a little bit modified, a little bit shorter than it would have been otherwise. But that program is on campus and running. But other than that, no one else is allowed on campus right now.
And when you say no one else is allowed on campus, that kind of raises an interest for us, because you have hired a few special ed instructional aides that have been students of SCC's program, as well as I'm sure you must have a need for possibly some help with the intervention programs, whether it's, response to intervention reading or anything, whatever the most recent programs are only employees allowed to be on campus, or is there any way that you could have a volunteer or tutors that were college students that came in? That's not what's happening. And
Only
student
employees.
Teachers, no student teachers right now either. Is that
We do
correct?
have student teachers. We do have student
It's
teachers.
fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, we do have student teachers, but the district has made it very clear, only essential volunteers. And if we think they're essential, we have to run it past the district to determine if they are essential. The district has partnered with another counseling group. So we do have an extra mental health counselor on campus twice a week. So that's been nice, because we only have one mental health counselor once a week. That's who we have hired from the district. And so having mental health here 3 days a week has been helpful. The second one just started, so we're figuring out how that really works with her not being an actual employee of the district and the process for organizing those. But yeah, we have our aides, we have noon duty supervision. So we have a lot of, and even for noon duty, when I hire noon duty, I want someone who wants to work with kids. So even noon duty, I would want someone like from your program, because that gets them onto the school campus, gets them in the school setting, gets their foot in the door for the district. I have one now, not from your program, but one now who wants to be a teacher, who now has gone and taken the test to be an instructional aide. And if I have an opening, I will tell her I have an opening, apply for it now, because we want to make sure that we bring them up. And I want to make sure anyone who's working with any of the kids, it's because that's what they want to do, not because they think this is going to be an easy, I run a tight ship out here. No, I want you to want to be with kids. So
Those mean lunch aides that my son had, used to put him on the blue square on the hot asphalt, right?
There you go.
No.
Yeah. No, I don't want that. Yeah.
Oh, you can tell, being an educator myself, man, the principal, boy, she would see me coming and go, oh no, what did we do wrong with Jack Perry this time, right? Yeah. Okay, that's a great update. And so just to carry that a little bit further, just for all of our knowledge, because there's so much for so many years, I've been doing this for 30 years, trying to interest students who really are cut from the cloth, I say, who have a care and concern for students, who really want to make a difference in society. Those are the students that I want in our program. And we do a lot in our classes to kind of, what I say, separate the wheat from the chaff, like really let the students explore and figure out for themselves, are they cut out for this profession of working with youth? Because it really is an essential worker, and it really takes a certain kinds of individuals to really be dedicated to do that and make a positive impact. So for the longest time, it's been hard, because some students arrive on our doorstep saying, oh, I've always wanted to do this and I really have a heart for this. And then trying to recruit other students whose parents are telling them, oh, it's a terrible job, they don't make any money, blah, 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 all that urban myth that was out there in our society. And then all of a sudden during COVID, teachers have become heroes, and programs, out of time school programs, the teachers that are there, all heroes, wonderful people. And then now all of a sudden, and I'll just say this, now they're turds because apparently most of them don't want to go back. They're scared. They need to have all of they're prima donnas. They need to have all of these protocols in place before they'll go back to work. But what I'm hearing from you is you've got teachers on your campus. So could we talk a little bit, and then maybe as each of you share about your programs, what are your, because you've got noon duty aides, you have instructional aides, and then you have your teachers. You know, isn't there an overwhelming majority that said, okay, I'm willing to go back and be on campus and do what I need to do? Or what's going on, Heather?
Yeah, you know, in fact, when we first started, because we come back, you know, mid-August is when staff comes back. So when we first came back, they were given an option of working on campus or working at home. So they could fill out a paper saying, I'd rather work from home. I don't feel safe, whatever the case may be. Only
Sure.
2 of my staff members said that. Everyone said, this is my space. This is my room. This is where my stuff is. This is where I can do my job and do it right. And so almost everyone came back because they know that's what we need to do. And if anything, I think their stress levels come from not, oh my gosh, I'm here and I'm going to get sick, but I see that I'm not being as effective as I know I'm supposed to be. And so I tell you have to just, you know, give yourself grace because you're doing everything you can, and you can't hold on to all of those things that are happening at home. You have to let some of that go. And, you know, we actually just started an SEL mentorship program on our campus, just started. So we're just kind of working it out. But I just put out a form to the teachers and said, does anyone want to be a mentor to a student, whether they're on campus or off, just to kind of capture those kids who are a little lost, don't see themselves. So now we're connecting a couple students to each staff member who said yes. And it's everyone, office staff, custodial, librarian, anyone, just to kind of reconnect with some of those students. And most of the staff said, yes, I want to be a mentor to someone. So I think that's the biggest stress, is just not doing what we know we're supposed to do. We can't pull small groups. They all have to stay 6 feet apart. Each classroom has to stay with their cohort when they're out on the playground. I have a noon duty with this class, a noon duty with this class, and I've given them where you're allowed to be during which recess because you can't mix cohorts. So it's a challenge because the kids don't get to play like they're supposed to. They don't get to have those small group instruction. You can do breakout rooms, and they are doing that, but it's just not the same. And that's really where the stress comes from. But only because I know that they want to do what's right by the kids.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you so much for giving us some insight to what's happening on an elementary school campus. And I'm sure that mirrors a lot of what's happening in the out of school time programs. So let's go to Jamie. Let's see, let us know what Orange Cares is doing and how you're operating. Are all your sites open, or are minimum sites open? Now I hear about an EDGE program instead of Orange Cares. So what's happening with your system in the context of the pandemic and other things?
So March 13th was when we shut down, and we actually reopened right after 4th of July week. We started with a summer camp with approximately 300 students, in comparison to the fact that we usually provide care for 2,000 students during the school year and about 500 to 600 during summer. So we had to, while we were off or closed for, not off, just closed, we did a lot of professional development as well. And then we also, I really worked on protocols based off of CDC guidelines, just really working on the safety and bringing our staff back. And our staff wanted to come back. We didn't have any pushback. I had a couple people that needed to because of underlying conditions, but other than that, they wanted to be back at work. I mean, after 4 months of not being with students, I'm very fortunate that our staff are very flexible, amendable, and gracious, and they want to be there for their families. And they understand because we're a parent paid program. Our service is based off of having families in butts and seats, you know? So we only closed for those 4 months. Budgetarily, we were worried about our reserves and being able to pay our employees too, because we don't pull from the general fund at all for anything, including the toilet paper that we purchase. So that was very stressful over the summer. So when we opened for 300 students, it was not ideal, but it was a start, and it worked out really well. We opened 4 sites, and The staff were really good. PPE, you know, I was working with purchasing. We got all the PPE in on time, all the protocols, everything was done, the waivers for families to sign so that if they did get sick, it wasn't on us. And we ran a summer program. So we actually opened right after 4th of July week. And then we ran into, you know, obviously a deficit because having 2,000 students and 100 employees, going down to 40% of your enrollment is not ideal. So the district helped us out and opened what we call the Edge Club and put 60% of our employees under COVID funds to provide for essential workers, families, care for free. And then took 40% of my employees and repurposed them into the classroom, like at Heather's school and other schools. So that's been very beneficial. And actually, I've gotten a lot of good feedback from principals about our staff and how their classroom management skills are really being utilized because a lot of the IAs are not really getting that experience coming in. So it's been very beneficial. And I feel like
Amy, could I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
So the clarification on that is some of the CARES employees are now being utilized in the classroom kind of as instructional aides, but in their role as an EDGE program person, but supporting the teachers and the kids in the classroom, right?
Yeah, their job descriptions have duties as assigned on the bottom, which for this period of time, there was an MOU created with the union to be able to maintain their jobs that they would be repurposed in the classroom. Mm-hmm. So it helped the schools and the students and the principals out, and also helped our department out because they're being repurposed and still have their employment. So they're enjoying, they're seeing a different side, but it's also nice because most of them are working at the school sites that they worked at with the CARES program. So they already knew the teachers, they already knew the principals, and there's only a few that had to go to different sites where we didn't have the CARES program, but most of them, it was an easy transition. And they're real, I get a lot of emails from our principals thanking us for all the hours and the extra earnings hours that they're putting in, because a lot of our aides are working 6 to 8 hours and they're normally only working 3.5. So that's been nice. We did just get the green light a couple weeks ago. We've been waiting on cabinet and the board to approve for us to go back to running our spring camp, summer camp, and fall. And we're going to also be supporting summer school learning loss a little bit. We're going to open a couple sites to help support families there. I'm working with our administration on that. And then we are hoping to have not a complete capacity that we had in the fall, but the last fall, but we're hoping to at least have 50 to 60% of our enrollment back up in the fall. And it's sounding that way because families are already starting to call and come back now. Our enrollment's actually gone up in the last month quite a bit at the different sites. So we're hoping that fall we're gonna be opening up registration in April for that. So we're hoping that happens too. I know there's a mouthful, so much going on, but yeah, it's been a roller coaster, but we've all maintained our employment. We have had no layoffs, and it's been, we've been working together. And I think that overall it's kind of shown the importance of our staff and how much they actually do contribute. So it's been beneficial all around. It's been a good process so far.
That's wonderful. And it's great to hear that the CARES Act, you're mixing kind of the acronyms, but the CARES Act money is actually supporting the EDGE program, right?
Yeah, I applied for a grant through the CARES Act and I got $214,000 to help.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Don't apply for a grant again, any of you, without partnering with us, and so we can build the pathway of our students to your programs. I told my folks that, I'm out of the grant writing business. That $6 million grant, that $6 million grant we got a while ago that helped us build out those pathways with Orange Unified, and Jamie, you were involved in that. That is in the rearview mirror, and so we're always looking for partnership opportunities. So I just wanted to put that plug in. But the CARES Act funding has really helped support our students on our campus that are part of our programs as well, with like so many laptops you can't even imagine, and access to internet, and then stipends to students who need funding. Our what is it called? What's our food bank called? Our Hawk's Nest, our Hawk's
Hawk's
Nest
Nest.
food distribution to the community, our students and their families, whatever. So, you know, I'm glad to see how Orange Unified is using it as well. Great.
Trying to find any possible way to keep us open. So.
Well, no, it's been needed. It really has. And so that's fantastic. Okay, so Jennifer, can we go to you and find out what's happening in Irvine Unified basically and Rainbow Rising?
Yes, very similar, dealing with very similar issues, you know, as you were sharing. You know, we closed for a short amount of time, mid-March, and then reopened the very beginning of May for essential working families. So we have been open pretty much the entire time. And, you know, it has been a challenge. The enrollment has dramatically, you know, dropped, of course, as well as, you know, the CDC guidelines, as well as we're a licensed program. So we have strict rules to follow as far as cohorts, grouping size, whereas, you know, typically we would have able to have 45 children in a classroom, and now we're down to, you know, 10 to 14 children because we have to social distance. But we've managed to stay open and not lay anybody off, but we've had to get really creative. We're probably operating at maybe 35% of what we normally do, but we're hoping that it will continue to increase. Irvine Unified went back in September to school, but prior to that, we were providing virtual learning at our centers to help our families with their kiddos during the virtual learning. And it was really tough, especially in the beginning, because you know, we'll have 10 children with 10 different classrooms, 10 different Zoom meetings, you know, happening at all different times of the day because they're all in different classrooms. So it was really hard for the teachers in the beginning. They got the hang of it by the time they went back to school, but we've had to modify our program. We now do provide, because Irvine has hybrid learning as well. So we really developed our program around the needs of the families in the schools in our community. So we have just normal care before and after school care. We provide virtual learning opportunities as well as the hybrid. You know, it has been challenging, and most of our staff were really excited to come back. There were some that were really scared to be around anybody. And while our enrollment was really, really low, we still tried to keep them working. But at some point, you had to be around children. And, you know, and it was a difficult decision for some. And we wanted to be really sympathetic and, you know, work with them. But at some point, we are here to work with the kids, and you are going to have to be around children. So, but I would say the majority of our staff were so excited to be back. Yeah, you know, we're just kind of taking it day by day, and hopefully we're getting ready for our spring camp program and our summer camp program, hoping that we'll build that enrollment back up. But yeah, it has been tough. We haven't really been able to hire anybody because we're just trying to keep everybody working. So we've moved some people around to some of our larger sites. We will probably be consolidating a couple of sites, but like they'll merge for summer camp. We've had to modify some of our hours where, you know, we're usually open 7 to 6. But we've had some sites that maybe only had one child that needed care in the morning until, you know, 10 o'clock or 10:30 till the kinders get out. So we've had to modify that, which is tough because we don't want to take that away from our families, but we also want to be able to keep our teachers working. So we've had to make some of those tough decisions to alter some hours. But the goal is to get back to normal, you know, if that ever happens. We're hoping, or we don't even know what that looks like. Right. But while we were closed, we tried to, you know, still keep the connection with doing Zooms with our families. We implemented the Seesaw program with our families. We sent out activity newsletters. We had like activity videos that our staff would do that we'd send out to all the families to try to keep their children busy at home. So it's definitely been a different world, but we're hanging in there, and the goal is just to, provide the children the best environment that we can for them. And it's been tough. And I have to say, the first time I really went out to visit one of the sites, and it breaks my heart that you have to try to keep these children 6 feet apart. And it is very, very challenging, but seeing them play in a whole new way, it's tough, but the goal is to keep them safe and have fun. So we're doing our best, to do that.
That sounds great. And you said that you're on 14 elementary school campuses?
In
They're all-
Irvine, yes.
In Irvine, they're all
Yes.
elementary.
All elementary school. We have some TK programs at some of the elementary schools. So TK through 6th grade.
Okay, great. Thank you. YMCA.
Okay, so this past year, we've been busy. We never closed our programs down. We did actually, for our north area, drop down to, I think we got down to 2 open sites at one point, but we've managed to stay open through the entirety of this pandemic. We actually learned how to operate new programs by popping up programs for UCI hospital workers. So we took over the Doubletree Hotel right across the street and created a school, an after-school center out of all of their ballroom buildings and everything. So that was pretty interesting. So we've done a lot of that. We work in several different school districts, and so with each school district, you have to be flexible and open to what it is, the protocols that they have going on. So in Orange, we have 3 ACEs programs that we typically run out of Orange Unified. And so that was one of the campuses where we were completely locked out, but we've been back on campus since they've been back on in a modified version. So around 40 children, but we're managing really, really well and working closely with the districts. Tustin Unified continue to stay open. We're in Huntington, we're in, we even have programs up north. We have a couple of programs that came on board. Some of our grant funded programs came on board slightly later on as well. But yeah, it's just one by one, we just continue to open up, and we're getting a lot of phone calls as well. Getting ready to plan for our spring breaks, our summer camps and all that good stuff. And hopefully we'll, we're still locked out at some campuses, even though they're back into school. So Newport Mesa is one that we still haven't had access to get back on campus there. But we're still hoping, and we still continue to communicate with the district. And so we've gone through a lot of changes. We at one point did end up furloughing a large number of staff. Mm-hmm. We lost a lot of staff, which is really unfortunate. We are able to manage to hold on to some of our more veteran staff, but even if you lose 2 or 3 people that have that like 20 years of experience, like that's a huge hit, because you can't buy that type of, that life experience. You can't really train somebody who's 2 years into it to know what that is, right? So a lot of the same things are similar to Jamie too. We take advantage of every CARES grant, every CHS opportunity, everything that we can do, just to stay afloat. And it's been a huge challenge. But we made it through 2020 and we're here. So that was like a huge, mark of success for us. So yeah, we're basically doing the same thing, just kind of hoping that things will kind of get back to normal, whatever that is going to be as we move forward. And we just stay open to possibilities. So Jane,
you mentioned that, Janice, like she mentioned about CHS, Children's Home Society, mm-hmm. also really reimbursed us for even when the students were not attending. Mm-hmm. So we got a lot of funding. In fact, it was like over $100,000 that we just looked at yesterday from them. That's another benefit that's been going on for after school programs.
Wow, yeah, that was huge. They were not only able to give us monetary donations, they actually gave us products like cleaning products, gloves, thermometers, like everything that all the PPE we,
Yes.
we needed. And so they have been a huge support and a huge help. We have a lot of our third-party vendors too, especially for the licensed ones that continue to pay for children, even though these children are not attending right now. They don't feel safe enough to come back to school. They continue to pay us, and that has been a huge amount of support for us. It really helped pull us through this past year. We took a huge hit from serving well over 1,500 kids and over 4,000 association wide. I think at one point we were down to 200.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we were hit pretty hard, understandably so. But we managed to stay open and provide care for just those very essential workers. And, we've just continued to expand. I think one of the greatest things that we were able to recognize in our own staff and to see our own staff go through this is, I don't really believe our childcare staff, I don't believe that they even realized how essential they were. And so for them to realize like childcare has to go on and, dealing with parents who really need to have this care, like that was an eye-opening experience for them. I feel like from what I've seen in my team, like this was a huge, like, kind of wake up call to them, like, my gosh, I really am like more important than I've imagined. And so I think that was a huge gift for us as well, like, kind of socially and emotionally for them to, kind of see that roll out and to really, really be needed. And knowing that we couldn't do this, without them, and that parents, in order for them to put food on the table, needed to have these staff and these childcare, these child development professionals, like they needed to be in place and they needed to be able to open to receive children. So
just a heads up too, we're coming up on our CPR and first aid training this summer, and CHS also reimburses for the trainings.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Yeah.
I'm working on that now too. So.
That's another purpose for us. I mean, you're also kind of listening to each other's competition somewhat, but you're also hearing about, the ability of resources available. And that's what this whole partnership and you're the advisory council basically for our education child development pathway. And so we really appreciate you sharing everything and sharing ideas with each other and seeing how we can support each other. But it's sounding much more optimistic to me. Of course, my child's not school age, but he was before and after care in Irvine Unified the whole time from Montessori. He was there till 6 o'clock at night. No wonder he's so messed up. No, he's actually quite a great kid as a result of all that support he had. But it sounds to me, because I was concerned that if parents need to find some kind of childcare or support for their kid in school, and in our areas in Orange County, it sounds like they can get it pretty much. I mean, particularly now that there's no cost programs because of the support of the CARES Act. So that's actually quite good to know. And it kind of gives us a different energy on how to talk to our students, because there was pockets of time, sometimes decades, where we're trying to encourage students to go into teaching and really keep our teaching force robust. And there was no hiring. There were no jobs available. Jobs weren't needed. Teachers weren't that important. And then now we're at a place where everyone is starting to feel a sense of importance and about what they're doing. And hopefully when the things get under control, whatever the new normal is, that there'll be, some hiring, and there'll be an influx of kids back into the schools, and all of our programs will grow, hopefully. And SCC is trying to be in the spot for you all to be giving our students that early experience in education, working with youth, understanding teacher performance expectations, all of those kinds of higher level things actually that you might not always get in an aide or a first level child care assistant teacher or whatever, so that we're putting those folks with that kind of experience and those folks that have already predetermined that they want to work with youth in your programs, right? Because our goal always has been, or at least my vision for the program, other people have come and gone, but has been, I want them working in your programs and on your campuses while they're going to school to become a K-12 teacher, if that's what their ultimate goal is. I don't want them working at Burger King or closing down El Pollo Loco at 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you know, this is what our students do to survive. And if they can make, if there are opportunities for them in your programs and they can make, you know, a decent wage doing that, then that's what we want to do. And it's related to what they want to go in the future. So if they do end up in the K-12 classroom, they've had so much more experience understanding the education bureaucracy, classroom management, you know, kids classroom or youth management, you know, just they go into that first year teacher position as a much more experienced than others who maybe decided once they figured out, they finished their bachelor's degree, couldn't figure out what else they wanted to do, so they figured they'd become a teacher. Those are the kinds of folks we're trying to prevent from going into the teaching field, right? We want those really well-experienced ones. So it's really great to hear about your programs. So go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So I'm that person that you just said. I started college and I'm like, I don't know. And then I did liberal studies because I don't know. And then they said, and I said, oh, I'll be a teacher. And I was very blessed. My high school dance teacher paid for my bachelor, all my bachelor, my understudy. So when I went to her and said, I'm gonna be a teacher, are you sure are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, you know, and now, you know, later I'm like, actually, I probably would have loved to have been like an obstetrician or something, but I love what I do. Right. And yes. I think I'm okay at it. But that's what I try to tell my own kids. Like, I can see what you love and this is what you should be doing. Like, I'm trying to tell my Hannah, you need to be a dance teacher. She loved dance. She's not dancing now, but she wants to work with young children and she loves young children. So she's following her passion, which is good. I also just shared with Veronica, Orange Unified is trying to hire a lot of AVID tutors. So really, you know, students, and there's very flexible schedule because I've told Joe Irvin is the one who's interviewing for elementary. And I've told him like my Hannah would do that, but she's going to school. And so she's depending on her classes and she has like Tuesday, Thursday classes or whatever. And so then she can't do that. And she only wants to work with me. I said, you can't work under me. Sorry, dear. So she's going to have to get over that eventually. But I did share that with Veronica too, to share out with the students, because again, we do, if I would have known any of this, or if any of this would have existed when I was in high school, yes, I could have gotten into it and seen. And even when I was in college, like I worked at a medical office all during college. I would have loved to have gotten started. And then when I started teaching, they had college students who would help in the office and stuff. And I wish that I would have known something about that. So I love that you have these partnerships and that we can work together and give you these opportunities to give to the students, because they do need to get in and get started. And it's in their heart, and that's who we want on campus, like I shared earlier. So I'm super excited for this connection.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yay. Okay. And I think what I'm hearing is, and we can talk, I have this whole PowerPoint presentation for our academic program, but the other folks besides Heather has seen it. So maybe we can just, once things get back a little to normal, Ronnie, you and I can take Heather to lunch or something and talk to her about that more in depth, or meet with her, you know, because I want to keep this, I want to keep this going and talking about, you know, your programs and, you know, what we can do and how we can get the students to your programs. Jamie mentioned early that they're hiring substitutes. We have a program that we want to kind of showcase that we just created with the YMCA, which we were trying to replicate with Rainbow Rising last year, and then boom, the pandemic hit. And we couldn't have our follow-up meeting with Jennifer, and it was just kind of on hold until now. And now, Heather, you mentioned about AVID tutors. So what it's sounding to me like, because the concern is that for across the state, because I've been president of the Association of Community College Teacher Ed Programs, across the state, all of us who have these programs and have the early field experience class that requires 45 hours of field work, have been panicking because our students have not been allowed on the campuses or in programs because they're not employees, right? So that's why I asked you, Heather, about the student teachers, because some universities, I believe, have been able to keep their partnerships with the districts and keep that going. But the pre-professional students like ours, the pre-bachelor's degree students, have not had that access. And so we've been being very creative. But in some cases, like with our program with the Y, or with what we used to have with Think Together, which we have not been able to have now, if we can have students doing their field work as part of entry-level employment in your programs and collecting their hours that way, then that seems to work during this COVID time, because my bottom line point is it sounds like they have to be employed, that you're not letting volunteers be on campus. So that came up when, Heather, you mentioned the avid tutors, because we're the place to find those avid tutors, right?
And they want college students. But I will say we do have one student on campus right now who is still in her undergraduate, and she had to get observation hours, and HR let her come on campus. So those kiddos who are in programs who need to get on campus for something like that, they are. But just to have, people on campus and just volunteering, no, I have to go through clearance and stuff. But if you have students who need observation hours, they just call us, they let us know, and they will let HR know, and they can still access us.
That's really great. You're going to become a lab school, right?
Yeah.
You're going to become a lab school if our students can get to you. Not all of them live in bus taking, or sometimes, transportation issue of Olive. You're over by the old Orange Mall, right?
Yeah, Yeah, I know. So like my daughter was at Esperanza, and they could just walk to, Glenview. So
they walk to their place, right? Yeah. And so, but that's neither here nor there. We're happy. We've been working with that with the Y. So let me see if I can find I just want to have some kind of visual aid, if I can share my screen for a second. Okay, so we have a nice video that you all saw last year. This is our education pathway that we built. Do I need to make that smaller for you guys to see, or? This is our pathway that we've built, and we have a couple of entry-level kind of introductory type courses. And these yellow boxes are the state-approved certificate programs that we have in after-school program assistant, after-school program associate teacher. Those are the things we titled them. In a few minutes, we're going to do that exercise to see what your titles of the different positions are on your locations, to see, what amount of education our students need to have to get hired into your programs, et cetera, et cetera. But we also created this bilingual instructional aid in Spanish, which students have been starting to earn that, because if they come in with a high proficiency in writing, reading, and speaking Spanish, then our Spanish department has, given them credits in ways for that, and they just have to take a class called Spanish for Teachers. That's just normal classroom kind of conversations, as well as a couple of our introductory, what's it like to be a teacher? What do teachers do? How to work with kids? How do you work one-on-one in tutoring situations? Those sorts of things. And that kind of is what encompasses a certificate like this, because we're trying to get more and more students interested in using their bilingual skills and becoming bilingual teachers as well, right? So we have this whole pathway built out into elementary teaching, which is TK through 6th grade, secondary teaching, which is they have to get a degree in their subject matter, but we have these introductory field experience classes for students that are interested in middle school and high school. So that's kind of why I asked about your if you have any programs that are middle school youth oriented, because we're getting ready to go into a project with UCI and their CalTeach program in STEM, and trying to get students interested in becoming math or science teachers from middle school to high school. And in our partnership with them, we're always looking for sites for our students to, our combined students to teach science and math or assist in science and math type classes, middle school through to high school. We also potentially will have, once a grant comes through for them, an actual science camp at SCC that in some cases we might be able to partner with your summer camps and your summer camp students to involve them in that. So that's something that I'm going to use my advisory council for and be talking to you about in subsequent summers as that opportunity comes available for those kids to maybe have a science experience with our students and UCI students that want to be science and math teachers. So this is kind of our education pathway. So I wanted to briefly go over that. You can look in our catalog or on our website to see what our academic preparation is. But when it comes down to it, we want to know from you all, do we have the appropriate preparation for the employees that you need on your campuses? Is there something else that we want to add to our curriculum or change, or we're doing fine what we have, that makes the students more than eligible for your programs? What I'm hearing from you, Heather, is that there is a test for instructional aids. Is that still the basic math and English test?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I think it's just a skills test. Yes.
Yeah, it's just a skills
It's
test.
the paraeducator test. I get the certificates a lot because they usually take them to work in our program.
Right. Yeah, and so it's typically any of our students who have completed their first semesters of math and English can pass that test easily. So that's why we don't really worry about any other kinds of requirements. But other than the possibility of any of your programs that are licensed in a way that you have to follow the state child development permit requirements. And maybe in a minute we could talk about that. I know that doesn't apply to the instructional aid positions, but it might apply to the Y, the CARES and Rainbow Rising. But one of the other things I wanted to just point out quickly, and actually I can forward this PowerPoint to you, Heather, or the document that has this in it, but everyone who came last year received the document. But what we also try to do in our program is we try to embed soft skills in our curriculum. We're very intentional about what do our students need to know, but what do they also need to know how to do in the context of hard skills and soft skills. So as we move into looking at the different levels of positions that you all have, I just wanted you to know that we've done this research to make sure that we're mindful about the kinds of activities, the kinds of content and the kinds of activities and experiences we give our students in our education classes that will hopefully help them develop these soft skills that it takes to be a successful person working with youth or working in the classroom with students as an educator. So if you just want to take a quick minute and look, these are the ones that we're talking about at our level. We have a list for elementary teacher, secondary teacher, etc. But what we have here is child care worker, program assistant, preschool, school age teacher. And of course, Jamie was very involved in helping us develop these lists, as were other people in their out of school time care programs. K-12 teacher aide, instructional aid, here, Heather, and then preschool teacher or school age care director. So we try to graduate it kind of by what it seems professional level or experience level, and build on the soft skills necessary to be successful. This is in addition to the academic content. This is what we try to, like I said, build our activities and our field experience around students and our instructors and our faculty watching for these characteristics in our students. So if you just wanted to take a quick look at these, let's say these first 3 or 4 columns, let us know, is there something there that's missing that you think needs to be added to the list? Because this list is a couple years old. If you're not seeing a characteristic that you're always looking for in one of your employees that's working with kids, what might be missing.
Hi, Janice. Just a thought under the preschool and school age care teacher, when you start to get up into the levels of becoming a teacher, you need to have some mentoring skills. And that's something that I'd like to see that should be on there too, because when you get up into a teacher, and Jennifer and you guys can chime in if this is how you do things too, but typically our teachers, our fully qualified teachers, have the capacity to supervise another staff. So they would actually have an aide of their own within a classroom. And in that case, we would like to see that those mentoring skills come up so that they can actually develop that staff that's with them.
That's a really great point. That's a good addition to our list. And so as a result of us meeting today, you know, we can go in and we can't change the original publication that this came out of, but we can update this list over time. So perfect. That's great input. And
yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's really important too, because I know for us, we typically only hire in teacher aide positions, and we promote within. And so we put them on the path to hopefully become a director someday if that's their goal. And we have different levels. So, you know, teacher aide, teacher, master teacher. And with each position, you have different responsibilities. And our master teacher does take on a lot of that role with helping teachers and so forth. So yeah, I agree. I think that would be something really great to have.
So that, you know, crucial conversation piece, you know, having that constructive conversation with the aides too. I think that that's kind of how that'll help too.
Right. So, you know, leadership probably contributes to that a little bit. Yeah. Having that sense of being the leader and then what comes with that. But that mentorship, I think, is really important for us, because being able to supervise other staff or other peers is something they need experience with, which, you know, bringing students out of this kind of a college setting into your programs, you know, they have the leadership development experiences. Like we have a very active future teacher club. We have students that are engaged with the student California Teacher Association. So they're developing a lot of leadership skills with the things that they're engaged in. Not 100% of our students, but you know, the core students that we really know are serious on the pathway, take each semester what they're supposed to do, get all the early field experience, get transferred to the university, and work in your programs the whole time that they're, you know, working through school to get their credential or their bachelor's degree so that they can be a program coordinator or site, you know, coordinator or whatever it is that's necessary. One of the other things I wanted to point out in the list is social cultural perceptiveness. This is a really important part of our curriculum, and we've worked hard and are still, particularly in the context of the most recent social justice inflection in our society, of really being intentional about embedding lessons, content, activity around understanding their own biases. You know, how does that contribute to how they respond in a stressful situation, you know, with youth and with kids, understanding cultures different than their own, learning how to be empathetic and understand and patient rather than having their biases triggered, you know, helping them grow and develop as individuals to be able to recognize, you know, their own view of the world as it compares to you know, the students that they're working with, and understanding the students' view of the world as much as possible, so that those really strong connections can be made. We know that that's what helps kids in the classroom be the most successful, if they trust their teachers, if they trust their, you know, child care leaders, in a way that they're also learning through their social and cultural perceptiveness how to be better mentors to their students as well, right? So we're really committed to that, and doing a lot of professional development with our faculty around those contexts, because we're trying to sort of dismantle a lot of the previously established, what I'll call colonial kind of education system that we have in America, and really trying to broaden that, to make our education system apply to all of our kids, regardless of the backgrounds that they come from, so and cultures that they come from. So that's a big part of our program as well. So I wanted to kind of brag on that a little bit. We try to have workshops during normal times. We'll have a couple of workshops during our 3 workshops during our conference, that is professionally developing our students, as well as other community college students in the area who'll be attending, plus the high school students that are coming up, on trauma, you know, how to address trauma in the classroom, how to prevent, you know, trauma, whether it's trauma from microaggressions, or how to handle students that are coming from home environments with trauma, as well as looking at the social and cultural issues of kids, and trying to get our future teacher students to recognize that the tapestry that their future classes are going to be, as it relates to the kinds of students that they're going to have in their classrooms. So we try to have workshops next year. Hopefully we'll have some face-to-face workshops that cover those topics as well. Any questions or input about that?
Yeah, I also just shared, there's a visual that focuses on the social emotional competencies. And that's something that's like a newer buzz, not super new, but newer. So I sent that. I have Veronica's email address, so I'm just sending her stuff as we go. But
please do, because if you put it in the chat, yeah, if you put it in the chat, I am such an old dinosaur. I can't go to the chat and copy and get it out of there. So
yeah, I like
really
it. Just
appreciate it.
share.
Yeah.
So that, you know, focusing on, because one of the things that I find, I don't really understand. I don't understand, because I don't have this issue, but just teachers communicating with parents, communicating at all, and then effectively. I have, you know, a few that are great. They'll talk to the parents and they don't feel like it has to be a confrontation, but the best thing you can do is be a partnership with the parent and be honest with how the student is doing, and don't feel like it's going to be a fight, but you need to be open and honest. You need to communicate with the families how the students are doing. And I think some of that comes from this social emotional competency. Like, do they not, you know, respond? So there's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. But so within the adults, but also understanding that will help, you know, the teachers understand, or any of the staff understand, there's a reason. Like right now, I had to tell my staff, please work together. I'm in a meeting this morning because we have a kid who keeps eloping. And I'm getting texts like, okay, he's doing this. Anyway,
yes,
he doesn't have his self-management skills. So it's not because, you know, he's being a brat, or this kid, or, you know, he's working on something, and we need to help him with that.
Exactly.
So having that mindset shift, because not all kids are going to fit in this little box, and and he has trauma. So when you said trauma, I'm like, yes, he has trauma. His upbringing with his mom was rough, you know, so there's a backstory. So I think, you know, the more we can focus on this and the resources that come with it, the better we'll be able to support our students. Our students today are very different than our students of yesterday. So,
yeah.
And of tomorrow, I'm sure.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and thank you for that resource, because that is something that it has existed for a long time, but it really has it's come off the wall, actually, in the context of this kind of new, I'll say, renewed energy toward, you know, equity and social justice, and understanding what's behind the eyes, and not, you know, we have a workshop on one of our child development faculty does it. It's about what's behind that behavior, you know, looking behind the behavior to see what's going on. So thank you for that, because that is something that I want to also encourage my faculty, our education faculty, to get more training in the SEL. And how do you expose your what we call pre-professional level teacher students to those concepts as well. We do the TPEs, we do all the social justice, cultural diversity stuff, but really pulling SEL out and making it a fixture that our students are aware of before they go any further in their path is great.
And that's the beauty of them working in our programs. They're face to face with the families every night, whereas teachers not always are. So we always have to have those conversations. So I feel like when they're going to school and working in our program, they're putting it to practice. And so I think it gives them an edge up when they're getting ready to teach, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, all of that. Let me go on. This is where I wanted to brag a little bit about our project that we have, or our program that we have with the YMCA of Orange County. We've actually, one thing I do want to do is I'm going to give some kudos to Orange Unified too, about we have an MOU with Orange Unified that I know, Heather, you mentioned they just kind of have to go through HR or whatever. Actually, Orange Unified has a huge rigorous kinds of things that students have to go through to be able to observe in the classroom, but many students get through that, and we do have a pathway. We just didn't know if they were letting us have our observation students on campus at this point, so students haven't sought it out. But if we have a partnership with you, Heather, as a principal, and work with us with HR, we might be able to send some students your way that can help you out, and then help our students in our program out as well. But in addition to that, after last year's meeting, the YMCA of Orange County offered to work with us to have a place to place our students that it could be their first experience in a classroom or in a program working with youth. And so what we're calling it is, we've always had an internship program. You'll see the slide on the other side, which is related to our previous program we had with Think Together, where our students would be hired as volunteers for Think Together, but they would be a part of our intern program. And we worked with Think Together staff to ensure that the first so many hours of their involvement in that internship program were supported not only by Think Together and their training, but a faculty member in our program supporting those students and being a mentor and let the students ask questions, or our faculty member observing those students, and just making sure that we're holding on to them during their first couple of months of their experience together. So that is what we had with Think Together previously, and the YMCA really was excited about being able to have our students work in their program. They're hired right away as a YMCA employee, but they're still considered an intern with our program for the first couple of hours. So we're working with the YMCA and the student together to support that student to success. So Doreen, do you or Jane want to talk a little bit more about how this works? Of course, the pandemic hit. We didn't know if we had placements for students. Then we found some placements for students. And so we have a whole class called Education 113, and it's called Tutoring Reading in Elementary Schools, but it's now called Tutoring Strategies for Educators or Instructional Aids or something. We changed the title, but the content is still the same. It's very focused on how do you support kids in the classroom, and what are some of the strategies, and how do you recognize student needs, so that we have students enroll in that class, and that makes them eligible for us to refer them to the YMCA and potentially get hired and serve as an intern, basically a paid intern, and then ultimately an employee of the YMCA. So Jane or Doreen, you can explain it further to the rest of the group.
Yeah, and seeing as how Jen is the program that you were talking about years ago that we had in place before, I was part of that too. So it's been kind of a nice, next step, seeing this come to fruition. We're excited about it because we've always wanted to be a host to kind of nurture that pathway, but now it's a little self-serving because we're thinking we want really good staff. Where do we recruit from? We, you know, have partnerships with the local colleges, but I think this is very intentional and this is something that needed to happen. I know this is something, it was kind of years in the making, but you know, with this collaborative, we've identified how can we make that connection and provide this platform. So I think this is, like you said, the pandemic hit, but I think picking up a little bit even now, I think we've hired 2 students so far from the pathway. So I think now we're still kind of troubleshooting and kind of working out the kinks, but when we see, because they apply through our website, just like, and just the positions are posted for, you know, just throughout the, for YMCA of Orange County. So once we identify that they are SSC students and are part of the pathway, we have that question of how are you, did you hear about us or were you referred to us? So as soon as that they identify that they were part of that pathway, we'll go ahead and kind of grab those applications and move them down the pipeline specifically for our 3 orange locations, because I know that's what is most convenient. You were talking about the transportation piece. So we do have options to place them elsewhere as well, but we're prioritizing these students as we funnel them through our interview process. So the screening is the same. As a regular YMCA employee, you know, it's important for us to for the safety piece, that they undergo the drug screening, the background check, and all of that good stuff. So, and it kind of helps the college students as well to undergo, a lot of the times it's their first time being hired and ask for these kinds of things. So, you know, with, you know, any sort of education, you know, career in education, these are a lot of the requirements, the TB test, the life scan. So it's a learning opportunity in various capacities. But once they come on and they're onboarded, and like you said, Janice, sometimes they think that this is what they want to do and quickly realize that it's not, you know, the right thing for them, which is okay. But, you know, we've given them that opportunity to say, yes, this is what I want to do and I want to keep on doing it, or maybe it's not the best thing for me, you know, and good luck to them as well. But bringing them on, you know, because our volunteers, they were pretty much held to the same standard as an employee. The only difference was they can't be alone with the kids. But I know in the past, when we've worked through this with the titles that we have, our orange locations are not licensed, but because of the inequity in pay and titles, we do follow licensed titles. So all YMCA staff are held to, you know, depending on their educational background and years of experience, you know, whether they're an assistant, whether they're a teacher 1, a teacher 2, a teacher 3. So now, you know, the compensation aligns with that. So these students, you know, that are of value and are bringing, you know, something to the table, you know, as part of the YMCA team, now have that opportunity to gain the experience and be paid, and they're held to that same expectation. So I think this is, like I said, it's the next step. It's nice to kind of start to see it come to fruition. And I think it's a step in the right direction of, you know, that hand in hand, making that connection and providing that experience to the students. So, you know, we're excited about it. And so far, we've started small, but I think it's something that kind of, and we see that difference between, you know, just an applicant that said, I saw it on the portal, I saw it through Indeed, you're hiring, I don't really know what I'm applying for, versus, oh no, they told me about it at school, or I saw it on the job board, and, you know, this is why I'm applying. So, you know, kind of already gaining that, that buy-in for, like Heather has been talking about, and I think it's a theme of you know, the meeting today is we want to get the right people, get them in the door and provide that opportunity. And I think this is a step in the right direction to how to get there.
Right. And actually, and I know this happened at Orange Unified when we did, through my dear friend who's retired now, Terry Nee, we did an MOU with Orange Unified quite a long while ago. And then recently we just updated because the board at Orange Unified wanted to have it be every 5 years, it's renewed, right? And so we found that as kind of a model for, it puffs up the board members in both institutions, and oh, they want to have that partnership, and then it helps set aside any kind of liabilities or anything as our students are working in your environments. So we were able to establish an MOU between the YMCA of Orange County Board and our Board of Trustees as well, so that we have that official partnership and, you know, all of those protections, and then our Board of Trustees gets to brag, and the Board of YMCA's, you know, board gets to brag that they have a partnership with San Diego Canyon College, and, you know, our folks all like that kind of stuff. But for as far as our students are concerned, they, from the perspective and the example that Jane just gave, they don't get referred to these positions but through us. So they're enrolled in a class or have been enrolled in a class or in a partnership, and then we let them know, and then we refer them to the employment portal. And Jane tracks those applications, as she was saying, so that we know that the students know that they're part of our program, that they're being supported not only by the Y as an employee, but by Santiago Canyon College Pathways to Teaching. So really it's for the students' perspective of, oh yeah, I'm an intern with SSC YMCA of Orange County, but I'm also getting paid. But then they sort of realize, well, I'm an employee of YMCA, you know, so, and they get to continue that. Because these kinds of experiences outside of the classroom for our students take hours away from being able to work at Burger King or McDonald's or wherever they have to work to help support themselves or their families. And so if we can give them an internship that's paid, that's the most important thing to us. And so this worked out perfectly for us because they're hired as the YMCA employees right away, and we're helping support them in their new position for the first like 30 hours of their employment there. And then the students know, so as they pass on and they go to Chapman University or Cal State Fullerton or whatever, and they're still working at the Y, we supported them while they were with us, but then they become the, you know, the Y's employees. So it's kind of a model. Jennifer, I mean, yeah, Jennifer, right? Yeah, Jennifer from Rainbow Rising. I'm sorry. For what we might want to do something with you all to really make it official so that you know you're getting like those students that we're referring. And Heather, I'm hearing about the Avid tutoring program. So, you know, we might make something more official so that we make sure that our students aren't just finding the jobs on Indeed, but they're actually coming through us, and we're working in partnership with you to place the best students in those environments. I did want to bring a note to the qualifications. There's that class, that Education 113, they are enrolled in or have taken it. The YMCA, it says, Ronnie, I wanted to ask you about this, has completed at least 6 college units. I think we agreed that they're education or child development units, right? They're not just any 6 college units. The last bullet from the bottom.
I wasn't sure what we agreed on. Was it the child development? I think you also discussed maybe psychology or certain classes that would be
Yes.
related to working with children in some capacity.
Right.
Right, so those college, at least, I mean, to come in entry level, they need to, they actually don't need to have any units coming in on an entry level, but as long as they have 6 college units in child development or a related field, that sets them up for that next level of teacher 1 and
Right.
some
That was
higher
going to
pay.
be my other question based off of that. You know, I know we're talking about current students and where they're going with their pathway, but have you ever thought of having like a kind of like a little seminar on what pathways you have for our current employees? Because we have a lot of young staff that are interested in working with children or interested in education, but they don't necessarily know what to do and what classes to take. And so I try to mentor through, working with, the master teacher, getting their permits to the credentialing programs and all that, like through you guys. And I try to share what you guys have, but it would be nice to have some sort of meeting where they could really see the big, like kind of like the diagram of like what pathways you could really take. And because I have a lot of staff that come to me and like, I don't know what I want to do yet. And
that's a really great request, particularly now that we can do things where they don't have to leave their site. We don't mind going out, but if you've got people on multiple sites, and we can do a webinar for your staff to say, these are your options. It's kind of like, there's programs that we've had in the past. It's the paraprofessional to professional programs where there was grant funding, of course, where we would actually reach out to paraprofessionals in the schools and in the after school programs, and have, bring them to the college, give them the counseling they needed for the kinds of courses they need to get to the next level, and then possibly on to a credential. It's called Grow Your Own. I mean, we've always been committed to growing our own. Our students don't want to leave Orange County. So, you know, we want to grow our students to become teachers in our schools. So yeah, so that's an option. So we would just need to, you know, set something up, but we could certainly put together some kind of a webinar that shows your staff about what their educational options are for getting to the next steps.
Yeah,
So,
maybe YMCA and all the, you know, all the other CBOs in the area that have, because a lot of the aides that are entry level that don't have units are in that younger
right.
bracket where they're trying to figure out what they want to do. So I think it would be beneficial, not just for my program, but for
Right.
everyone, you know, and then we could
Yeah.
grow our own if they have the units. Because like for us, they need units to move up to an assistant and then definitely to become a lead in our program. So
yeah, and that would be great. And if there's specific kinds of units, we would, you know, maybe do that webinar. And if there's other just general education levels or an AA degree or whatever, we could do it based on that. So definitely let's after this meeting, you make that request, keep that on the top of your mind if that's something that we could do, because that's a recruiting strategy for us.
yeah.
And so we want to serve the community, but we also want to bring your folks to our college to finish their educations and move up into higher levels of livable wages, right? That's kind of our commitment. So for sure. So I just wanted to clarify that we couldn't put all that information on here, completed at least 6 college units, but we work with our students and say, so what other kind of education classes have you had? What child, before we refer them. So we have, what I'll say as the last thing about this is we have a pre-screening process. So we put this info out to our students. We make sure they've been enrolled or will enroll in this Education 113 class or one of our other field experience classes. And then we sort of look at their transcripts and see what else they've taken to make sure that, you know, they have something related to that child development education pathway before we actually send them out to get employment with you all. So any other questions about that program? And why the YMCA, do you have middle school age programs?
We do. We
Okay.
don't have any currently.
Mm-hmm.
We have specific middle school age programs down in our South County. So that would, down in Mission Viejo and Laguna Niguel. We actually have some middle school children who are able to attend some of our programs in Huntington Beach. But at this time, we do not have a specific school. That's a priority on our list.
Right. And sometimes just to go back to something that Jane has said and something that was mentioned earlier to Heather about transportation, you know, many times we have students that have transportation issues. And I know, Jane, we realized that when we were doing that big project with Cal State Fullerton and all of that, but for the Anaheim Y. But so some students are very limited and other students can drive and they're willing to drive. So we don't want to say we always have to have something, you know, bus taking distance or walkable distance for our students to be employed in. But it seems that our highest need students, maybe our lower income students or students that have less resources, are the ones that really attach more to our program because we're an overall support service program. So those are the kinds of students that we have, those students that we want to be teachers, those students that have had those life experiences that we know will make them, you know, deeper as an individual and hopefully better teachers. But sometimes they can't go as far out into the community as we want. But that's not all of our students. So I just wanted to mention that issue about, you know, hiring and utilizing our students on your different locations, because Irvine is a little bit further, but we have a lot of students in our program that come from Irvine. We have students that are from Central Yorba Linda, like Heather has mentioned about her daughter. We have partnerships with all of those high schools as well. So we've got students that come to SCC from all over. So I'm going to stop share, Ronnie, and see if you want to put up your chart. We kind of started a chart on the positions that we know are the titles of the positions in your different programs. And we tried to do this separately after the fact last time. So one of the last things we wanted to do today was maybe get a better idea of the entry level to the higher levels of employment and their titles that you all have and maybe the pay range. So if we started with the,
you guys can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it, yeah. So that's why I started talking, sorry.
Okay.
We started with, we've got the Y, we've got Rainbow Rising here with Jennifer, and Orange Cares with Jamie, Orange Cares, and Edge with Jamie, and Heather with Olive Elementary, which right now, what we were aware of for Olive Elementary is the entry level employment there is instructional assistant, but Heather's also mentioned noon aid and then possibly avid tutors. So we would move, and I want to do this in a correlation of levels. So we would move instructional aid. So we're going to use the Olive Elementary as kind of an example to the up level for our paraprofessional level prepared students. And then we have a noon aid and an avid tutor, which is potential employment at a typical elementary school in Orange, but particularly if we had more of a little bit of a formal partnership with Olive Elementary, correct, Heather?
Yeah, and they're hiring for secondary as well. So if you have students who want to do secondary, they do hire for elementary and secondaries for the avid tutor.
For the avid tutor, okay.
And for noon duty. I mean, I know that like we had a parent who was noon duty last year and her son is now in middle school. So now she's noon duty over there. So you're still getting on campus. Your foot's in the door and then you can apply for those other jobs that open up. So
yeah, they need to experience school from the perspective of being a staff person or a teacher instead of their perspective. All their perspectives on school and schooling is from being a student. And so one of the biggest shifts we have to have them make is get them on the other side and see that school isn't what they thought it was because they only experienced it as a student, right? So yeah, so noon duty aid is what that title is. Do you have any idea about, we could look it up, I suppose, the pay levels?
Yeah, I want to say noon, I think noon duty is like 13, I think. Avid, I have it right in front of me just because they're flying it right now. The Avid is 1444.
Heather, do you have the range for noon duty? Because I have the schedule in front of me.
No, I don't have anything open. I don't really know.
Okay.
And noon duty is typically, less than 2 hours per day, right in the middle of the day. So if this is a kiddo who likes to sleep in or do their classes in the morning and then work like from 11 to 1, that would be like a noon duty type hours. Avid tutor, they're very flexible hours. There's some that are almost full-time, some that are very, very part-time. So that one has a lot of flexibility.
Okay, that's fantastic.
And the other thing I would say too, I was just thinking, when I was back in college and going to be a teacher, even being, an attendance clerk or something, even working in the office is good experience, for how a school runs. And is this the type of place where you want to be? We want them with kids, but that's not something that they should just not do. That's something that they can also do.
Yeah. And that, that's one of the things that we were able to do better when we had the larger grants and whatever, is to have, like Ronnie at one point was really doing a lot of searching for the different jobs that were available and helping our students. She still does help them with resume and applications and whatever, but as we've have less and less staff, more and more falls on the three shoulders that you have in this meeting. So we can't always dig through what are the job openings, right? So this is just good to know, to have our students pay attention to, or for us to focus on a few positions, or maybe have Heather contact us and say, hey, we've got this many positions open. And that's really how this works. And it's the same way with Jane and Durain, and hopefully with you, Jamie, even more, and with Jennifer in the future. Okay, so that's sort of what we're trying to do here. What was the range on that, Jamie? Did you say you had that open, noon duty aid?
I would need to know the range, the pay range, or what range the position is, and then I could tell you how much.
It's like a level position, like a level 10 or something. Okay. Yeah,
so like our aides they're a range 14, so that's why you have 1338 to 1549.
Okay, and then what's the next? That's your childcare age. So let's just go to yours. What's the next level position?
The next level would be an assistant lead, and that's elementary.
Assistant lead. What's the full title? Is that it?
Childcare assistant lead. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a range 23. So they start at 1509 and end at 1935. And obviously, like with the school district, there's COLAs involved and things like that. So
Okay, so let me ask this as an example, and hopefully Jennifer will be able to help us with hers on Rainbow Rising too, is for that level of employment, how many, don't they have to have ECE units or related, or do they have specifically have to have child development classes, or do education classes count?
Child development or human development.
Okay, and so for that level of a position, how many units do they need?
15.
Yeah, 15 child development units.
Yes.
Yeah. And then for the child care aid, how many do they have to have?
None. That's why I say it's like that entry level, a lot of them get the job and then they realize they want to be teachers, but they don't know which way to go.
Yeah, yeah. And we could do something as one of these webinars or these, seminars or workshops or whatever on, what are your education options kind of thing jointly with our child development department too, because we're working together with so many of our students, right? Even though education and child development are separate disciplines on campus, it's interdisciplinary what we're doing. Okay, so that's great. And what I'm looking at, even noon duty aid or child care aid, I mean, my kid's a college student and he's always looking for a job, and anything that's $14 an hour or up, that's a great job for them, better than working at, I won't say In-N-Out, but, Burger King or whatever. And what's the next level position, Jamie?
Child care lead teacher.
Child care lead.
That's more of I would say that's a little more of like if this is something you really want to do and stick with, but I do have a few of them that are going for their masters, or they're,
Sure.
They're trying to figure out like a specific area they want to go into, but that is a range 36 and they start at 2085 and end at 2668 right now. And they're in charge of their site. So like at Heather's location, she has Kashana there, one of our lead teachers, and she's in charge of that site. And then I oversee that. The lead pretty much handles what's going on there.
Okay.
And the bottom is 15 units, but in the last 5 years, I haven't hired anyone without a bachelor's for that. So
sure.
I've definitely
15 units to a bachelor's degree, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even like, well, yeah, I mean, they have to have child care or child development and human development units. But I like to see that they're like either heading into a credentialing program or something like that, or maybe they want to do something else. But the last few that I've hired have had their bachelor's degrees.
Right. And so these are folks that are students that are getting their like associate degree for transfer in child adolescent studies or something, that want to go to the child adolescent studies program at Cal State Fullerton and become a teacher by that route, right? So,
yeah,
so those
this is an 8-hour position. This is an 8-hour full benefited retirement, like full position. And the assistant lead is a 6-hour full benefited position as well.
Which is an excellent point, because sometimes we say our education stops out at the associate's degree, right? The associate's degree for transfer. And so that's what we report to the employment development department, all that kind of stuff for our students who have gotten those kind of livable wage jobs with their associate degrees, right? So they may not be going on. A lot of them cannot go on. They have to stop school and take a position with their associate's degree. I'm hoping that we would certainly be referring students that had some experience working in childcare before that level, but that's just that's a great. So let's go on to Rainbow Rising, because I want to be cognizant of time. I'm sorry, we're getting a little bit close to our 10 o'clock. Jennifer, what's the first level position that you all have in Rainbow Rising?
We have teacher's aide. And the starting rate for that is 14. And there's no units needed to come in at the entry position.
Okay.
And then our next one would be a teacher level 1, which would be 14 to 15. And that is 12 units required. ECE is preferred, but because we're a Title 22 licensed program, related courses can count, like sociology, psychology, art, music, dance. It's real flexible with school age care.
Right, and it could be possibly our education courses too, which are.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flexibility with the school age care under licensing. And then our teacher level 2 would be 15 to 17. And that would be, so 15 units would be required. And 6 of those have to be ECE.
That's great clarification. We know how all that works, so that's really good for us to know and have a chart. Yeah. For our counselors and our advisors. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, start out at, yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And then YMCA, we kind of pre-populated based on what we know, but is teacher 1 and teacher 2, are those 2 different levels, Doreen?
They are 2 different levels. We've kind of restructured ourselves just a little bit different. We're not too far off. So our child and youth development teacher 1 is comparable to Rainbow Rising's teacher aid, and their range is from $14 to $16. 14 to 16. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're hiring our interns in. You're hiring our interns in on, is that first level child youth development teacher 1. So we would take the 2 off of that, Ronnie.
Yes. And then for your child and youth development teacher 2, the 2 and 3 can go hand in hand. They can go into the same column.
Oh, 2 and 3. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so we're just going to consolidate this a little bit. And so that range is from 1484 to 1707. And the educational requirements here are 6 units in a related field. And
so you know what, Janice? It looks like our breakout.
They're going to cut us off. Oh, I hate them.
So 6 units in ECE or a related field and 6 months of experience.
Okay, thank you. And if they shut us off, I want to just say how grateful we are for all of you coming today, and we will be following up with you, and please follow up with us, because the last thing was, if you need anything else, Jamie had a really good suggestion. If you want anything else from us, please don't hesitate to ask, but we'll be following up with you individually